all of the big names were already there. Barack Obama, Michelle Obama, Arnold Schwarzenegger. I would say that Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining is better for the environment than not.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Proof of Words podcast. I am, as always, your humble host, Pat. And today with me, we have Philipp. And Philipp, you're going to have to apologize. I've been living in Germany for so long, but this is A, the best German name I may have ever heard, and B, also way too long that I know I'm going to mispronounce it. But Philipp Hartmannsgruber. Which pretty much sounds directly out of a Die Hard movie. But Philipp, if you would be so kind, maybe if you could give us a quick introduction to yourself, tell us a little bit about your background and what inspired you to really kind of go down that Bitcoin rabbit hole like some of the rest of us.
Yeah, so first, yes, Hartmannsgruber is right. And you don't have to, you can imagine what my struggle was as a little kid and like always in the exams writing Hartmannsgruber. All of the rest, they had already answered like 3 questions and I was still struggling with my name.
Like on standardized tests in the United States, you get points if you write down just your name, like literally like on the SAT, you get 200 points for putting your name. I think you would get 300 points for putting that name in.
Yeah, that would be fair. And yeah, so I always tell the story that in 2013, actually, I heard like cognitively the first time Bitcoin from a friend of mine. I was doing my bachelor's degree in economics. And the thing is, like, it's crystal clear right now in my mind, this conversation. That's like only with like some really big events. Like I still know 9/11 when I heard of 9/11, and lots of people know what they did at that moment. And with me, it was the same with Bitcoin.
So you know exactly where you were, what you were doing, because that's a memory from, I mean, I think I was maybe 9 or 10 years old when 9/11 occurred. That's such a vivid, striking memory, even to me at such a young age. But for you, that is similar to Bitcoin. Like you remember Bitcoin like I would remember that.
Yeah. Wow. It's the same. But the problem is, even though I remember it clearly, I didn't understood it back then. And I didn't care about it. And that's probably like the most people have the same experience. In that time, 2013 was so difficult to buy Bitcoin. You had to be like a little geek to get on, I don't know, bitcoin.de here in Germany. It's like a really, really bad version of eBay to buy your Bitcoin. But the second time in 2016, and this time I remember as well, I was standing in the kitchen in my flat, and I got a call from another friend, and that time I was in my master's degree. It was finance and accounting. And then he told me about Bitcoin and blockchain and what it could solve and the problems and the issues. And then I said, okay, now that sounds interesting. That's like what I'm doing regularly in my study. And then I wrote my master thesis about cryptocurrencies in 2017. I started my first job in 2018. I was an IT consultant at automotives. And always I started to pitch the idea of blockchain to companies. And like in that time, I wanted to get all of the big German car makers together to get a standard for the supply chain, like track supply chains on blockchain. There were some use cases and like some proof of concepts from Volkswagen, for example. But in the end, it didn't happen because in that time there was a big fuck up in Germany with the diesel scandal, and then they said no, we can't talk to the other
VW thing. I remember that.
Yeah, but then I moved into the financial banking industry, and I worked at a financial institution in Munich. I applied there for the crypto custody license, a newly licensed. Germany was, I think, the first country in the world to establish the crypto custody license. It was back in 2020, I think. Yep. And I applied for that. And then I built, maybe you've heard of the Volks- and Raiffeisenbank Bayern Mitte.
Yep.
And for the Volksbank Raiffeisenbank bei Mitte, I was the product owner from the external side, and we built together the product so people can buy Bitcoin via the Volksbank Raiffeisenbank bei Mitte bank account. And then the Bitcoin will not be in custody of the bank, but it will be transferred to the private wallet of the customer.
Ah, interesting.
And yeah, I think that's the only bank in Germany which is offering this. At least they were the first, and now there are one or two other Volksbanks who are doing the same. And yeah, but then I joined the red S, the Sparkasse. Maybe you've heard of them, Sparkassenfinanzgruppe. They have like 50 million customers in Germany. It's crazy.
Well, it's the second biggest retail bank behind Commerzbank, isn't it?
No, it's much bigger than Commerzbank. Commerzbank and Deutsche Bank are only bigger in company clients, but retail Sparkasse is by far the biggest with 50 million. Volksbank is the second with, I think, 30 million, and then maybe Deutsche, Commerzbank, maybe 5 million each. They don't have that much retail customers.
So interestingly, one of the banks that we use for our company, Samara Asset Group, is Sparkasse Malta, because apparently that's a thing.
Yeah, they spread. They are in Austria pretty big too, and in other countries. Yeah, and I was responsible actually for cryptocurrency trading. So I was in the lead if all of the Sparkasse should offer their clients to trade cryptocurrencies. And then I said here, those are the pros, the cons, and looked at the risk and everything. How could we do this marketing-wise? And in the end, the Sparkasse is big. Like I had 100 people on the project from Sparkasse, Landesbanken, DWP, S-Payment. You have so many companies in that conglomerate. And in the end, you go from committee to committee. And I had, I think, 5 committees. All said, yes, we will do it. And the last one, it's the important one, said, no, we will not do it. But it was obvious because Bitcoin, it was like 2.5 years ago, and Bitcoin crashed like 50% in that time. And they said Bitcoin is too volatile.
This is during the FTX or like the post 3AC and the liquidations and all that nonsense. Yeah.
Yeah, and then it's really difficult to be to say yes, we will be the first bank in Germany, and the Sparkasse, they are pretty traditional, and so I understood that. But I think we did a great job, and let's say now in 1 year they say, okay, maybe we look at it again, and then in 1 week they can do it. So it will be really, really quick.
And it's very interesting. I mean, Germany, I feel. I mean, so I'm an American, and I can't really say this anymore because now we have the American ETF for Bitcoin, we have Ethereum, and a handful of other products. But Germany, from a regulatory standpoint, for probably a period of 5 or 6 years, was light years ahead of A, everybody else in Europe, B, the United States, and C, frankly, everything that is east of Germany, right? I'm including Russia, Asia, everything. I mean, Germany had the first no action letters that it provided to initial coin offerings. Germany was one of the first countries on earth that classified Bitcoin according to its own tax codification. And it's ridiculously long German word that translates loosely to unit of account. I forget exactly what the word is, but it's one of those German words that you put 10 words together and voila, you have a new word, right?
Rechnungseinheit.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe not 10 words, but yeah. You had Germany be the first, like literally the first regulator on earth that approved of a STO prospectus. That was for the real estate bond company back in 2018, if I remember correctly. I don't recall the name. But Germany also was the first regulator, the BaFin, to approve of a physically backed Bitcoin ETP to trade on a regulated stock market. You had a couple of different other products like ETCs that were trading on unregulated markets, which don't need regulator approvals. But they were the first to officially approve a full prospectus for a Bitcoin ETP back in 2019, 2020, I believe it was. This is surprising for a country like Germany, which, let's be honest, is probably more so than anything, maybe besides beer and cars, known for its paperwork, and B, BaFin being historically considered a very strict and conservative regulator. It's interesting that the regulator was more open to this, but exactly like you said, a lot of the German institutions, the older companies, they weren't necessarily ready to allow for their clients what the regulator actually was willing to permit. Is there a reason for that? Is that a culture thing? I don't know. What would your thoughts be on that?
So maybe first a step back, and then I go in detail into what you just said, because the same time we are right now with the Volksbank, it's like 2020, 2021, I joined the Blockchain Bundesverband. It's the biggest blockchain association in Germany. It has like up to 100 members. And I was the head of operations back then. And for the last 2.5 years, I was a board member. And with this association, I lobbied every law you just mentioned. So for the last 4 years, I was influential in every cryptocurrency law in Germany and Europe. So Europe said EU, like Parliament and Commission, not other European countries. And yes, Germany was very early, and I think that was very clever. And they were, as I said, the first to put out the crypto custody license, and that attracted a lot of exchanges and big companies overseas into Germany. And the thing is, why did Germany do it? First, to have clarity for the companies, for the consumers, for everyone. And they didn't want the Wild West. Like, they didn't like the ICO hype. They wanted to have a regulated system. And I think that was really smart to be the first to do this, because first, as I said, you attract companies. Companies want clarity. They want regulatory clarity. No one would found a company if they didn't know what the next year will happen. Maybe there will be a new law and they will ban from what they are doing. So Germany was very, very quick in establishing, and I think mostly a very good regulation. It's not perfect, because no regulation is perfect, but it was good.
The only perfect regulation is no regulation.
It's no regulation, yes.
But if we're going to live in a world where we accept regulation is necessary, and I do think we live in that world, there is asymmetric information. Consumers do need protection if they don't know what they're doing. And I do think that Germany, while again, not perfect, I would probably say it's 90 to 95% there. The custody regulation they came up with is actually perfectly reasonable.
Yeah, I would say so. And the thing is, what you have to differentiate is those are all laws. Those are in the responsibility of the German government, not of the BaFin. The BaFin is only doing what the law says. So in this way, especially Liberal Party did a lot in this regard. All of those crypto custody stuff comes from the Liberal Party. And I have close contacts with them, especially because of my work with them the last 4 years. And I would say most of it was really good. We had, for example, the topic regarding the taxation. Like, taxation system was probably 2.5, 3 years ago. And with some other people, I was highly influential that we stick with the 1 year holding period. As a Bitcoiner, that's really crucial to have this 1 year holding period, because after 1 year, your gains are tax-free. And again, Germany is one of the only countries in the world with this taxation system. And
which is actually kind of interesting, because whether they knew it or not, the German government actually, I do think, over the medium and long term, is benefiting its citizens by effectively forcing hodling. Right. And that obviously wasn't the intention. They were trying to fit it into the framework of the tax codification that currently exists. But hey, if you're going to try to incentivize behavior in a certain way, what better? I mean, what they really should do is mandate it move to 4 years that you have to hold your Bitcoin, because then every German citizen will be really happy on having to be forced to hold it for that much longer.
Yeah, that's totally true. And it only comes because we have the same system for gold. And most of the politicians probably think Bitcoin is digital gold, which is probably correct. Depends on every person what he thinks about this, but in many ways it is. And so it made totally sense. And for example, we lobbied for some other things which didn't happen. We said, for example, yes, we want to have the 1 year holding period, but if you sell under 1 year, you don't pay it with your personal income tax, but with a new tax, the Bitcoin tax. And this is 25%, like for stocks. And they said,
like
no, we can't.
Tax.
Yes. But then they said, no, we can't. It doesn't work with the Kapitalertragssteuer, so the normal tax for stocks, because it's a different system, it's a different law. We don't want to mix this. Then we said, okay, then just introduce a new taxation. But they said, no, we can't do this, too much work, blah, blah, blah. In the end, we said, okay, we have our 1 year holding period, and the rest, okay, then you have to pay your personal income tax. It's fine. And with this, we had like a lot of other topics like mining, for example. Then, proof of stake and that stuff is in there too, but that doesn't matter for me personally. And so I think there were really some good regulations. But we had some topics like with MiCA, the Markets and Crypto Assets Regulation, which is already in effect for stablecoins and will be in effect totally in the 1st of January next year. In this discussion, there were some people in the EU who said, yeah, we have to ban proof of work. We have to ban Bitcoin mining in Europe.
Yeah.
And what we did is we wrote a fact sheet and we sent it to all of the people who voted on this. And in the end, they agreed, or at least they didn't ban proof of work and Bitcoin mining. So I think the thing is with lobbying, you never know who is influential. Like they will not tell you, oh, okay, we read your paper. Now I switched my mind. That is not something that happens. We can only do as lobbyists the best what we can do, and then we hope for the best outcome. But you never know.
Well, you also never know who's lobbying on the other side, right?
Yes.
And there are very powerful political groups that, for whatever reason, have decided that Bitcoin and the energy that Bitcoin uses for proof of work consensus mechanism is the absolute enemy. And without getting too political, I mean, if I can ask, what was the fact sheet that you put together, or what were the main highlights of the fact sheet that you put together to advise European Parliament on how to vote? I would imagine that it probably showed that yes, Bitcoin uses a lot of energy, but practically speaking, it's not that much. And B, that Bitcoin uses predominantly, or at least, I don't know when it was written, but Bitcoin is one of the most green and sustainable energy users on Earth.
Yeah, so we wrote this, I don't know, 2.5 years ago, but I think the main points were something like what you just said. Plus, you just have to look on mining companies in Europe. There are not that many. And those mining companies who are doing mining with Bitcoin, they're using either solar energy or hydro energy. So all of those energy is not coming from coal or other, for the environment, bad resources.
Right.
So the main thing, what especially the Green Party looked at, is CO2 emissions. And if you don't have any CO2 emissions with Bitcoin mining in Europe, why should you ban it? Then we said, what will be the effect if you ban it in Europe? Then they will move to Kazakhstan maybe, because that's not that far away and the energy is really cheap, but it's really dirty. Yep. So you will have a lot of CO2 emissions, not in Germany or Europe, but that doesn't matter. Like, we are living in one world, and it doesn't help you even if there would be less CO2 emissions in Europe, but like 10 times the amount in some other place in the world, it doesn't matter. So I think they understood those arguments. And the other thing is, I'm not sure if we already put it in there, because In my podcast, Bitcoin Insights, I had, for example, Alexander Neumüller. He's the guy responsible for Cambridge and those things regarding Bitcoin uses as much energy as Netherlands. And he said in my podcast that this was, it was bullshit. The data was wrong. They didn't have the right data. And even to put those comparisons is not good, and they are not doing that anymore. Like maybe they are, but now their focus is like compared to other things which are more comparable. But in the end,
that's like where. So Netherlands, I don't know exactly how many terawatt hours the Netherlands as a country uses every year, but I do know, for instance, Bitcoin does consume more energy than Denmark, a much smaller country than the Netherlands. But even then, Bitcoin, it's estimated that it's roughly 120 to 140 terawatt hours per year, which as a species, we use about 150,000, of which about 25,000 is overproduction and dissipated to maintain grid integrity. I mean, we basically use 0.25% of the energy that we produce but waste every year to mine Bitcoin, right? It's all about framing. And I just find that there's a lot of reporters and a lot of certain powers in the media that obviously intentionally misrepresent facts. And then that's the best part about a lie. It's based in truth, but you can misrepresent it and make it look infinitely worse than it truly is. And unfortunately, you've seen a lot of groups in Europe in particular attack Bitcoin over that.
Yeah, that's true. But the thing is, the last 2 years, all of the studies, they totally changed. They switched completely.
Oh, yes.
First it was really, I wouldn't say, maybe I would say, it was by governments and the World Economic Forum and big bodies who wanted to put Bitcoin into a niche, into a gray area, into a world destroyer area. You only have to look at the article which the World Economic Forum published in 2017. That in 2020, Bitcoin will consume more energy than the whole world combined in 2017, which is total bogus, of course.
Absolutely.
And now we see that, especially in the US, most of the energy companies, they work together with mining pools. For example, Texas there would be so many blackouts if there would not be stabilization of the system with Bitcoin. Like if there is too much power because of crazy winds or whatsoever, and you don't have enough people who are using the energy, and all of the batteries which are full, you can't store all of the energy we produce at some point of time. If you then put on Bitcoin mining and use those overflowed energy, then you stabilize the system, and you don't have to shut down blocks and blocks of companies and houses, etc. And I think if you look at all those things which Bitcoin mining is really good for, and if you see that 40% of Bitcoin mining is already renewable, and you see a switch to renewable energies, and all of that will get cheaper because of the investment which flows from Bitcoin mining companies in it. If you look at all this, I would say that Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining and proof of work is better for the environment than not.
So I agree entirely. So my argument usually always is that, so irregardless, let's throw out how much energy Bitcoin consumes and what it is relative to others. Let's throw out the idea that even throw out how much renewable and sustainable energy Bitcoin uses relative to other industries, right? It's kind of like a lot of people say like, oh, well, the banking industry uses so much more energy than Bitcoin does. And like, I'm okay. Right. I get the analogy, but it's apples and oranges at that point, right? That type of messaging isn't going to drive home the point that you're trying to make. The point that I always try to make is Bitcoin is the ultimate free market capitalist incentive mechanism to empower, or rather incentivize, technology companies and energy providers to come up with free and cheap, unlimited power in a completely renewable and sustainable fashion. Now, the short term, yes, you are going to have groups that go to Kazakhstan and China and use what we call dirty mining just because, hey, it's going to be more profitable in the short term. But as we naturally assume, those resources get tapped over time, and production of such resources, those natural resources, does get more expensive over time. You are going to need to have completely renewable energy sources, and you're going to have them unbelievably cheap. So I always end this conversation usually with saying, I believe Bitcoin is the ultimate incentive mechanism for us to find a cheap, renewable, completely sustainable energy source. Do we have it now? No. Do I expect we'll have it in the next decade? Maybe. But is it something that our children, or maybe the generation after that, as Bitcoin mining becomes that intensive, are they going to discover it? I absolutely believe so.
Yeah, true. The thing is, what I personally believe is, sure, Bitcoin mining uses a lot of energy. Mm-hmm. But if you look at ACs, climate, ACs.
Yeah. I'm in Germany currently, and okay, it's finally cooled down in Germany, but oh God, the first couple of years I lived here without an air conditioner, I hated my life in the summer.
Yeah, right. Because like America and Brazil, my girlfriend is from Brazil. They know AC, they are on all the time, and because of this, the energy consumption is, I think 10 or 20 times more than Bitcoin. So, but the problem is,
just in America or globally for air conditioning, I would imagine it's much more than that, actually. I could be wrong. I don't know that statistic.
The thing is, I saw it on Cambridge, and I think it was 10 or 20 times, and I think it was worldwide because Bitcoin is worldwide too. Otherwise, the comparison doesn't make sense. But I don't know if this is accurate at all.
So, I would imagine. So not knowing the actual data, I have to imagine that just in America alone, it's at least 5 times higher than Bitcoin's consumption.
Probably. But the thing is, what we need is education. We need people to understand what Bitcoin is, because most of the people think that Bitcoin is a scam, that Bitcoin is only used by criminals. And if you have this mindset, of course, the Bitcoin consumption of the energy is terrible. Yeah. I would say 1 kilowatt hour for any scam is one too much. So the thing is, we can only change this narrative if we get more people to understand Bitcoin and what it brings for the people and what the value of it is. And most of the people who look into Bitcoin for maybe 5 hours, they understand it. But not even 5 hours is like time most of the people will use. They will only read headlines, and every headline is Bitcoin goes down 50%. Bitcoin is used by a criminal. Bitcoin FTX is criminal enterprise and goes down. And of course, if you only read those,
I think that it's just a lack of understanding. Because while I do think that probably accounts for the majority of a reason why people misunderstand Bitcoin, I do at this point genuinely believe that there are nefarious powers that feel as if they're threatened by Bitcoin. And I'm not going to point at the banks in general. I think the banks have largely adopted it. I'm more speaking of authoritarians, globalist authoritarians in particular. I just have to imagine that they view Bitcoin as a threat to the global world order that they believe should exist. And therefore, they're going to try to attack Bitcoin and spread mis and disinformation on every front as much as humanly possible. Now, I do think that only accounts for a small minority of the backlash. I do think that the majority of people that don't understand Bitcoin, it is a lack of education. But when you have the powers that be that are actively trying to destroy Bitcoin, and a lot of them have capitulated, realizing that they can't. That's why the banks and the asset managers now accept Bitcoin. I have to feel as though that's a part of the reason why we still see people uneducated on Bitcoin, because, hey, they follow certain news outlets that are weaponized by these certain individuals.
Yeah, I think that was mainly true for the last decade. And I think we see a huge shift for like 9 months, 12 months now. It started with the shift of BlackRock and JP Morgan and all of the big, especially American financial institutions.
Yep.
Then we saw Donald Trump putting Bitcoin on the agenda for being reelected. We see now the switch for Kamala Harris. And so, sure, there are probably still some people who are in power positions we don't know, or they are not on our radar but have influence, and they feel threatened. But I think even those understand that they don't have a chance anymore, because if then it would be in the early years of Bitcoin and they lost that time, and now there is no going back. So either they have a time machine, which I don't think, or they say, okay, shit, we have to move on. We now have to get on board. And that is what BlackRock is doing, what is JP Morgan is doing. I just talked to a guy from Goldman Sachs. They are not that far, but maybe in a year they will switch on Bitcoin too. So I think most of them are now going on the Bitcoin wagon. And those who are not, they miss the chance. And so I think, yeah, it was like that, but not anymore.
So that's why, like, when you, how do I want to phrase this? We've been saying for years in crypto that, or I shouldn't even say crypto, but for years in Bitcoin, that if you just play game theory, the Nash equilibrium is you have to accept and embrace Bitcoin. You have to embrace what you cannot unilaterally change on your own. And if you try to unilaterally make a move that is in your own self-interest rather than fall to consensus, you're going to lose. Are we now at the precipice where that seemingly is coming unequivocally true?
The thing is, yes, I think everyone has to see Bitcoin or an investment in Bitcoin as an insurance. And what happens if Bitcoin gets mainstream? What happens if Bitcoin will be like gold, the currency of the world? Maybe it takes 50 to 100 years, but most of the people are looking not just on their own life, but on their children and children's life, especially in those areas. And then you have to say, okay, let's say 1 or 2% of the money of the portfolio, and all of the portfolio should be diversified. We know that from classical investment theory, but please don't diversify in crypto, only Bitcoin. But if you have 1 or 2% in an investment portfolio, and you look on all of the asset managers, if they all put 1 or 2% of their portfolio into Bitcoin, we have a price I just saw it today on a reel of $650,000. No, I think, was it the price if Bitcoin would be as big as gold? But either way, it will be hugely much more.
I think that's something around. Yeah, so I think the gold we overtake at something around like 550 right now, if memory serves correct. Gold's been on a tear the last couple of months. But yeah, so roughly close to there.
So sure, it should be an insurance for all of the major players, and only 1 or 2% is enough. I would advise 5 to maybe 30%. I am more like 75% personally. But
I was about to ask you, is my roughly 80% allocation, is that just wildly irresponsible, or is that okay?
No, that's it's still 20% on fiat, so pretty risky, but
real estate.
Okay, yeah, no, then it's fine. Yeah, so I think, sure, you should see it like this, and I think in Germany it takes more time. That's like always said. Like I see always BlackRock and all of the US banks, they understand it always much quicker. And I work for 4 years now in the banking industry in Germany, and I try to change that. And it's difficult. So
on that note, you are a part of a new group, the BTC Verband. You guys just had your first formal kind of formal meeting at the Bundestag
Foundation.
which is basically, for those that don't know what the Bundestag is, that is the halls of Congress in Germany. So can you tell me a little bit about what the BTC Verband is, what its mission is, what your involvement with it is? Because from what I can tell, this is one of the, it's not really a lobbying thing, but it's really working inside with the government, working on trying to find ways to promote Bitcoin adoption in Germany.
Yeah, so the Bitcoin Bundesverband, or the German Bitcoin Association, was now formed and founded on the 26th of September this year. We had around 70 members already. So we had 50 people in the German parliament. We had over 20 people joined via WebEx, via video call. And actually Daniel Wingen and me. So Daniel is one of the founders of 21, the big German Bitcoin community movement. And he now founded Tidebinder, B2B Lightning startup. And me, we worked for 1.5 years on this. So 1.5 years ago, we tried to join another Bitcoin association, because in 2013, there was a Bitcoin association founded in Germany, but we later learned that it is completely inactive since 2018. So after the ICO hype, they went dark, nothing happened there. There are still board members, but no activity whatsoever. We worked for 1 year to reactivate this association. And in July this year, we knew no chance, it will not happen because of different reasons. And then we said, okay, let's found a new association. We want another focus anyway, because we want to focus that our members are companies, that are Bitcoin-only companies. And then we worked for the last 3 months really hard on this. We wrote everything, the statutes and everything. The website was pretty quickly up and running. You can find now mostly all of the members on the website. It will be updated regularly. And yeah, mainly, as I said, focus is on Bitcoin companies. We have companies like 21 Bitcoin, Coinfinity, Courant, 21 Energy. So lots of well-known Bitcoin companies, especially from the German-speaking region, the DACH region. But I'm in talks with Strike, with Blockstream, and lots of other companies, because in the end, all of the American companies have to come to Europe, in the EU, with one company at least, and they have to deal with our regulation, if they like it or not. And Strike, for example, I worked closely with them together over the last weeks with Jack Mellers and co. They told,
I saw that you spoke together at Oktoberfest at Bits and Pretzels.
Yeah, right. It was actually our first official Bitcoin Bundesverband event. It was the official Bitcoin meets Bits and Pretzels side event, where we organized a small gathering, only like 100 people. But Jack Mellers came, he spoke together with 6 Bitcoin startups, and moderated by Rachel Geyer from Les Femmes Orange and TerraHash, and EBEA, the other European Bitcoin Association. And it was awesome. It was really, really great energy. Jack Mellers is I don't know if you know him, but he's really
I know Jack. I don't know him personally, but I've been following him for years. What him and his team are working on over there is just absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, it was a thank you, because I brought him to Bits and Pretzels. So we worked closely together with the founders of Bits and Pretzels. Who doesn't know the event? It's one of the biggest startup conferences in the world. It had this year 7,500 people. All of the big names were already there. Barack Obama, Michelle Obama, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Branson. So you name a name, and it was probably on stage. And we achieved that Bitcoin was the first time this year on the stage with Jack Mellers. He gave a keynote. And then Mark Friedrich, 7 bestseller books written, the latest one about Bitcoin. He interviewed him. And because of that, he then came to our site event. And yeah, I think it was really great. The video should be up soon. Like, it's
Wonderful.
similar to Bitcoin Prague, where he talked about proof of work. At Bits and Pretzels, he talked about money. What is money? What is Bitcoin? What is gold? And coupled it with proof of work. So it was really, really great.
No, that's fascinating. So, I mean, I have to ask. So you guys, I mean, you said like the BTC Verband, you guys were having the conversation of launching earlier this year, perhaps July. Do you think if it might have been possible if you launched earlier that the German government would have been so stupid as to sell billions and billions and billions of Bitcoin? Or, I mean, were you at all involved in those conversations, or did you meet any of the politicians that were involved in the process of the liquidation? And what was it that you were maybe telling them during that time? I mean, only if you're comfortable talking about it. I know that maybe that's a Chatham House Rules sort of thing, but...
No, I can talk about it because I was one of the most vocal Bitcoiners in Germany. I was cited in different newspapers, and I was highly involved, but from a viewer perspective. Because there's one thing, and actually I will talk at Bitcoin Amsterdam about this. And
I wish I was going to Bitcoin Amsterdam. Sadly, it's my anniversary this weekend, so I have other duties I have to travel for.
Yeah, that's a legitimate reason not to come, I would say.
And no matter how much I love Bitcoin, it will always be number 2 in my life, or at least that's what I tell my wife.
Yeah. Does she watch this video here right now?
I hope not. Miriam, I love you.
All right. So the thing is, what you have to understand, Germany is, yes, one country, but it has 16 states, similar like the US, but different. And we have 16.
But no, 2 city states, right?
We have 16 states, inclusive Berlin and Hamburg and Bremen. Bremen is one city state, yeah. It's 16. Otherwise, my educational system screwed me over. And Saxony is one of those 16. And in every of those 16 states, we have politicians, right? We have, like in the US,
you're right, it's 16.
State senators. Thank you.
Never. This is why you never listen to Americans on geography stuff.
Right. So we have in those 16 countries, states. We have, in Germany, we say Bundesländer, so like federal states, probably. And in those federal states, you have governments, right? And those are elected as well as the German government. And this means that in that case, the German government doesn't have to say anything. They can't say anything. It's not their jurisdiction. It's a jurisdiction of Saxony, because the federal police, the BKA, the Bundeskriminalamt, work together with the Landeskriminalamt, and the Landeskriminalamt is the of the state. And those confiscated the Bitcoin in Saxony. So the Saxony government is responsible for what they do with the Bitcoin. So I heard a lot of blame of Olaf Scholz and Christian Lindner, but it's not their fault. They can't do anything. They are only responsible because they didn't wrote a Bitcoin strategy, what Joanna Kotar asked them to. And so it was only Saxony. And
well, it's really a shame that the media covered it in such a certain way, because I don't think I ever saw. So this is the very first time that I'm hearing about it. I mean, okay, on Twitter and X, that has its own certain faction, and God knows that they weren't going to get a story like this right. But even in the mainstream media, I mean, you would read in like Wirtschaftswoche or Handelsblatt that it was always the German government was selling the Bitcoin, right? It was never the state of Saxony that was selling it. I don't know. That's interesting, because if it had been covered differently, that could have put a lot of that could have taken off a lot of undue pressure on the German government. It just seems like it's completely unnecessary over frankly, a technicality. Like, yeah, sure, it's the German government, but like, I mean, that would be like Ron DeSantis in Florida selling Bitcoin and people blaming Joe Biden for it, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Seems awfully
it's totally untrue. The thing is, I was even cited in like CoinGraph, those big coin newsletters from US, worldwide. I don't know.
Cointelegraph or
yeah. And we tried to get it right there. And we had some lawyers to clarify what actually happened and what the laws is. And that's the other thing. I don't know. The thing is, what did you hear? Like,
everything I read about it was German government, okay. German government, right?
But what did you hear? Did they had to sell it by law, or was there an option not to sell it?
Honestly, I don't think I heard either way. I think it was always just kind of phrased, the German government is selling billions and billions of Bitcoin. I mean, I even remember there were people in the crypto community that were willing to buy it. Like Justin Sun even came out and said like, hey, I'll buy it all. Just don't sell it, please. And I guess he's got the money to do it, right? But I don't think the German government's going to sell it to someone who's obviously a criminal of some capacity. There's a lot of governments in the world after Mr. Sun.
Yeah, but this thing is highly important because if the law says you have to do it, then you can't even blame the government. Like, sure, then what should they do? Should they quickly change the law? So this is highly important. Even if the government would be involved, the German government, and they had a law from 100 years ago or 10 years ago, and they just follow the law, then you can't blame them. You can blame the law and that they didn't instantly change the law. But the thing is, there are laws, of course, for everything there is a law in Germany, but it clearly says that they can sell the asset. They can, if there is a potential, the price goes up or down in 10%. Obviously, Bitcoin can change.
Yeah.
The thing is, this law is written for cars and real estate, not for Bitcoin. Because like 20 years ago or 10 years ago, Bitcoin were not confiscated. So the law is not applicable for Bitcoin. But anyway, it says you can sell it. So Saxony sold because the law said they can sell it. The problem is the prosecutor said they had to sell it. There was no other choice. And that is clearly wrong. And that is something I highly said, what the fuck? You can't say publicly in a press announcement, we had to sell it because of this law. Then they cite that law and the law says, yeah, you can do it. So the thing is,
wouldn't there be a judge that steps in and so that, but that's to clarify, that's what the prosecutor said, correct?
Yeah.
Why would the prosecutor get a ruling on that? Wouldn't it have to be the judge that makes the final declaration?
So the thing is, prosecutor, the German word is Generalstaatsanwaltschaft, the General Prosecutor's Office. From those published this press statement. And of course, in the end, the judge had to sign this. But if the prosecutor says, okay, we are selling now, the judge says, it can go up, down 10%, I sign it, check. But the
that's more just a formality at that point then, basically. Yeah. Okay.
The problem is, why do you sell it? You only sell it because you think Bitcoin can go down. It can go up, but I don't have to win anything if it goes up. Because let's say the Bitcoin price goes down 50% and they didn't sell it, the prosecutor is liable. He can be sued that he didn't sell the Bitcoin. So, okay, give me the 1.5 billion euro back because you didn't do your job, you didn't sell your Bitcoin. This is the only reason why they sold.
So it shouldn't be that way. The law, I guess, should be different. But also, like you said, like if this law was written 100 years ago, or even hell, if this law was written 20 years ago, and it was written to protect defendants or plaintiffs, whichever party, from wild swings on real estate or automobiles or collectibles or something like that, like the prosecutor would probably sit on it for a period of time and accept a certain amount of liability or accept the risk of liability just because, hey, the volatility of those assets isn't high. So based on the way that the law is written, I do understand then in this world why they felt they had to sell it for Bitcoin. But there had to have been a way that there could have been an appellate that somebody could have appealed this where they said, okay, we don't think it should be sold, and we absolve the prosecutor of the potential losses. And then on the other side, couldn't there have been a way that they said, like, okay, if Bitcoin goes up, the prosecutor pockets the gains and it's distributed? Like, I don't know. I don't know what the prosecutor would ever need money for. That would not make sense, and that's a horrible incentivization. Obviously, I'm not really recommending that, but I mean, couldn't there have been a way that if the gains had gone up, like another faction of the government or a donation or something charitable could have been done with the money and the prosecutor could have accepted that liability? I don't know. I'm just spitballing here.
It is the thing where we come in now as the Bitcoin Bundesverband. And I would say we are a Bitcoin lobby association. We are not affiliated with any political party. We are not a political body. And we only founded the association in the Bundestag, but that's it. We could have founded it in any hall, but we just got a chance by Jana Kotar, who, by the way, has her own initiative. It's called Bitcoin im Bundestag. And this is much more what you said. This is like...
I'm following her. She's fantastic.
Yeah, this is like educating other politicians with her initiative. The thing is, she as a individual is member in our association, and we are like do corporations, we plan stuff together, events, etc., but we are not affiliated. So because we can't be, it's a political system, it's a political body what she has. We are an outside association, normal lobby group, which is doing education, events, and stuff like this. And because of this, we can lobby to change this law, because this will happen again and again and again, and no one knows what to do, or all of them will do the same like in Saxony and will get criticized again and again and again. And that's why Jana said we need a Bitcoin strategy. We need the German government, and now it's their fault. We need the German government to say what we do with those billions of euro we get in confiscated Bitcoin. And there are different options, because we had cases where they did an auction. And they said, okay, here, one party can buy it. You pay us a 10% premium on the market price. Done. That's much easier, and you get a lot more money. I don't know why Saxony didn't do it. They did it differently with another company and OTC. It was really good, and I know the people who did it. This was fine. The price impact was nearly zero. But the other things, the laws, this is something we have to change. And this is why we need the Bitcoin Bundesverband. And we need us to change, or not to change, the taxation system. We all want a holding period from 1 year. But honestly, in 1 year, we have a new government here. The first thing they can do, say, we kill it, we get like 5 billion euro more money per year, and we don't have to struggle like Lindner with Habeck and Scholz about a couple of billion. So we need associations like us to fight for things like this, and for a better MiCA and a better MiCA too. And we hope that there will not be new laws, but there will be new laws, and then we have to help them to understand what the impact will be and how to change it.
So in the interest of time, because I know we're coming close to the end of our hour here, I mean, there's been a couple of governments that have announced their Bitcoin strategy, right? You have Nayib Bukele of El Salvador, who made Bitcoin a part of Bitcoin is considered official tender in El Salvador. You have rumors lately that Javier Milei is exploring something relatively similar in Argentina, right? Donald Trump has come out and said he wants to have a strategic reserve for Bitcoin of the United States government. And maybe it's 1 million Bitcoin, maybe it's something else, who the hell knows. But either way, that's a massive announcement that he wants not only to have the Bitcoin that the United States government owns not be sold, but to acquire more as a strategic reserve. Could be pandering, I don't know, but either way, I'd love to see it as an American and as a Bitcoiner. What do you think is the policy, or what would you recommend and have been recommending to the German government as to what the policy should be for how they approach Bitcoin? Is it make it a reserve currency? Is it something that needs a strategic reserve? Is it something that maybe it's a more fluid policy because we don't know exactly how the markets for Bitcoin will shape over the coming decades? Is it making it a national currency? I don't know. I mean, what do you advise, or what would you advise the German government?
So I didn't advise anything in that regard, and that's not something we do normally. Normally, there's a law they want to publish, we get it, we comment it, we get in the process and we change it or try to change it. But sure, I can talk to people and give them a nudge that they start for themselves a Bitcoin strategy. This is something I could do.
Let's assume, though, that the law has to be changed, right? Because I get that you have a framework within that you must work. But I mean, for Donald Trump to do what he's planning on doing, I don't think he necessarily has to change the law, because the government is allowed to acquire a strategic reserve of commodities. But maybe he'd have to. I don't know. It just pisses me off because nowadays presidents can get away with whatever they want to with executive orders, and maybe he would just do that. But maybe there is a law that he would have to change to include Bitcoin in the strategic reserve clauses. Bukele had to change the law. So maybe my question would be is, let's assume that the law is flexible and can be amenable to what you personally would want to recommend. If that is the case, what would you recommend?
Yeah, it's a really, really difficult answer because I have a personal opinion as Philipp. I don't have an opinion as I'm, by the way, the chairman of the newly founded Bitcoin Association, and Daniel is the second chairman. But we don't have a strategy right now because we just founded us. We need to talk. But the thing is, I'm not sure if we will go into that rabbit hole. But let me answer from my personal perspective. I'm liberal. I'm kind of libertarian. I want that money and state are separated. For me, money is Bitcoin. So I don't want Bitcoin and state get together.
Yep.
For this, I don't want Germany to have a strategic reserve. I don't want them to buy Bitcoin. I don't want Donald Trump or the US to buy Bitcoin. I don't like BlackRock. I don't like that BlackRock is filling their Bitcoin ETF because I don't care about the Bitcoin price. I know that personally, my Bitcoin wallet would go up if they would all do this, but that is not why I am into Bitcoin. So personally, I'm against this, and I would never advise the German government to do this on this topic. The thing is, if I would be a politician in charge, I would do it because I would diversify my portfolio. And this is fiat, euro. I can print. Number 2 is gold. Germany has the second biggest gold reserve after the US in the world.
Yep.
Then what do we have? We have like stocks and stuff like this through the ECB. There's nothing else, not that much else. So we need another thing, which is a hedge against the others. And this is only Bitcoin. So from a diversified perspective, you would be a fool if you not invest some money into Bitcoin. And I would think that Germany would highly profit from this.
Yeah.
As a German, yes, this I would like. So this is one of the things why it's difficult to answer. And the Bitcoin Association, we don't have one voice regarding this right now.
It's interesting. It's almost as if you have the same opinion kind of on that as like we kind of made this joke earlier that the best regulation is no regulation, but hey, if we have to live in a world with regulation, here's how the best way to do it is. So, okay, the best way for countries to embrace Bitcoin is to maybe just not have it regulated or try to kill it in any capacity, but just allow it to freely precipitate through the economy, allow your citizens to use it as money, but as a government, stay away from it as much as possible. It sounds like that's what you would advise or what you personally feel they should do. But hey, if we're going to live in a world where governments are competing with one another, maybe we have to acknowledge that the Bitcoin strategic reserve or even backing your currency with Bitcoin. I mean, that's something that always kind of sticks in my mind. I don't think it's possible with the fiat system, obviously. But I just keep going back and forth that there has to be a world where the backing of fiat currencies with hard, tangible assets, a basket of which, maybe one of which can be Bitcoin, that just fundamentally makes a little bit more sense to me than the system that we currently have. But the problem with that is I don't think the U.S. government is going to ever limit the amount of war that it can inflict on the world and the money that it costs to inflict that war on the world, and have that tied to the amount of Bitcoin and gold that it owns. I mean, that's the whole reason we're on the fiat standard to begin with, right? So I don't know. We'll see if something changes there.
Yeah, Bitcoin would probably end all wars instantly if everyone would be on a Bitcoin standard.
Well, I mean, we are not being facetious as Bitcoiners when we say fix the money, fix the world. It quite literally would fix everything. It's just unfortunately governments and politicians do not agree with us. Well, Philipp, it was absolutely phenomenal to have you on the Proof of Words podcast. Thank you so much for joining us on, well, this now German evening. We're going to have to make sure that we catch you back on at some point in the near future. We would love to hear updates on the BTC Verband and everything that's happening for you guys as you continue to work and advise the German government.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I had a great time.
No, this was fun. Thank you so much. Have a good day, guys.